The first thing I found was not a message. It was not a motel receipt, a lipstick smear, or some name lighting up on her phone after midnight. It was a blouse, light blue cotton, torn under the left arm, balled up at the bottom of the hamper beneath 2 towels and one of my old dry-cleaning aprons. That was the first thing that bothered me. Not the tear itself, because clothes tear, seams fail, buttons pull, fabric gives up when people move too hard in the wrong direction. I owned a dry cleaner in DeLand, Florida. I had spent most of my adult life touching other people's clothes and reading the small accidents they carried home with them. Wine near the cuff, grass stains on knees, foundation near collars, smoke in jackets, cheap cologne in expensive shirts. Clothes remember what people try to forget. And that blouse remembered something Joan did not tell me. Before I tell you how this started unraveling, subscribe to Reddit Ride for stories where silence carries more weight than shouting. My name is Barry White. I was 33 years old then, and for almost a decade, I had owned a little dry cleaner just off Woodland Boulevard. Nothing fancy. A glass door that stuck when the humidity got bad, a front counter worn smooth by elbows, a row of humming machines in the back, and a bell above the door that sounded tired even on good days. People brought me their best shirts, their funeral suits, their wedding dresses, their work uniforms, and the clothes they hoped nobody would look at too closely. I learned to notice damage without judging it. That was part of the job. A man would bring in a suit jacket smelling like perfume that did not match his wife, and I would tag it, clean it, bag it, and hand it back with a receipt. A woman would bring in a dress with a broken zipper and a look on her face that told me not to ask how it happened. I never asked. Dry cleaners hear stories through fabric, but we do not own them. At least that was what I believed until the fabric came from my own hamper. Joan was 38, my wife of 13 years, and the most unpredictable person I had ever loved. I do not mean that in the dramatic way people say it when they want sympathy. I mean Joan could wake up at sunrise and decide the kitchen needed yellow curtains, then spend the afternoon laughing because she bought green ones by mistake and liked them better. She could burn toast, dance barefoot while cleaning the living room, forget where she put her keys, and somehow remember the birthday of a cashier she had spoken to twice. Our marriage looked chaotic from the outside. Inside, it had always felt alive. We laughed more than we argued. We teased each other through bills, plumbing problems, bad weather, and long weeks where the shop barely covered payroll. Joan did not work outside the house, but she made our home feel full in a way I never knew how to make anything feel. She cooked when she felt inspired, ordered pizza when she did not, repainted furniture badly, kept plants alive by accident, and called me at the shop 3 times in one afternoon just to tell me something strange she saw in the yard. She was all over the place. That was Joan, and for a long time, I loved her exactly that way. The torn blouse should have been nothing. It was a Thursday night, late summer, and the house still held the day's heat in the walls. I had come home smelling like solvent, steam, and plastic garment bags. Joan had made spaghetti and forgotten the garlic bread in the oven until the edges turned black. We ate anyway, laughing about it, because laughing was what we did when life came out crooked. After dinner, she went to take a bath, and I carried laundry from the hallway basket to the washer. That was when I saw the blue blouse. I knew it because I had cleaned it for her before. Joan liked it because she said it made her eyes look brighter. It was torn under the left arm, not cleanly along the seam, but pulled diagonally through the fabric like someone had gripped too hard or the blouse had caught while she was moving away. I held it under the laundry room light. There was a faint smell on it. Not sweat, not perfume, something heavier, smoke maybe, a trace of beer, a trace of cologne that did not belong in our house. I stood there with the blouse in my hand while the washing machine lid stayed open. A dry cleaner learns not to overreact to fabric. Fabric exaggerates. A cuff can look ruined and come clean in one pass. A stain can look harmless and become permanent. The eye lies until you test the cloth. So I folded the blouse and set it aside. Joan came down the hallway in her robe, hair wet, humming like she always did when the bath made her sleepy. She saw the blouse on the washer. For 1 second her face changed. Then it came back. She said she must have snagged it on the pantry shelf. I looked at the tier again. The pantry shelf was smooth. But I nodded, because at that point, I did not know what I was looking at. The next week, another piece of clothing showed up wrong. This time it was a cream skirt folded inside a towel in the hamper, as if it had been hidden badly by someone who did not expect me to sort laundry. The side zipper had a bent tooth, and the hem had two small dark marks that looked like asphalt or parking lot grit. Joan had worn it that Tuesday afternoon. I remembered because she had come by the shop around noon with iced tea for me and our part-time employee, Maribel. Joan had leaned over the counter, kissed my cheek, and told Maribel she was rescuing me from becoming all starch and no soul. Maribel laughed. Joan always made people laugh. That afternoon, Joan said she was going home to reorganize the linen closet. When I got home at 6, the linen closet looked exactly the same. The skirt was in the hamper, the zipper was bent, and Joan was sitting at the kitchen table with a crossword puzzle filled out halfway in 3 different colors of pen. I asked how the closet went. She blinked, then smiled at herself and said she got distracted. That was believable. Joan got distracted by everything. A bird outside the window, a song on the radio, a drawer she opened to put away scissors, and then decided to clean completely. Nothing about that was suspicious by itself. But the skirt bothered me. Later that night, while she brushed her teeth, I took it into the laundry room and looked closer. The dark marks near the hem were not food, not ink, not grease from the house. They looked like the kind of grit that sticks near the bottom of car doors or motel parking lots after rain. I told myself I was being ridiculous. Then I checked the zipper. It had been forced, not broken by wear. Forced, there is a difference. At the shop, I could tell when someone had spilled coffee during a meeting and when they had slept in their shirt. You learn direction, pressure, damage. The story clothes tell through stress points. That zipper had been pulled in a hurry. The first missing time came the following Friday. Joan told me she was going to Walmart, then the bank, then maybe stopping at a thrift store if she still felt energetic. That was a normal Joan plan. Loose, hopeful, likely to change halfway through. She left just after 10 in the morning. At noon, I called because I needed to know if she wanted me to bring home detergent from the shop supplier. No answer. At 1, I called again. No answer. At 2, she texted that she had been in the thrift store and lost track of time. That was possible. At 3:30, she came into the shop wearing sunglasses, a red blouse, and a smile that looked almost too bright. Maribel was at the front counter sorting tickets by last name. Joan swept in with 2 paper bags and declared she had found the ugliest lamp in Volusia County and could not wait to make me hate it. I laughed because Maribel laughed. Joan kissed me on the cheek. Her cheek was warm, but her hands were cold. That stayed with me. Florida in August does not give you cold hands unless you have been somewhere with air conditioning turned low or somewhere that made your body forget the heat. When Joan left, Maribel looked after her and smiled. She's a hurricane, that one. I said yes. Then I went to the back room and stood beside the pressing machine until the steam fogged my glasses. A few days later, I found the red blouse in the hamper. 1 button was missing. Not loose. Gone. The thread had been pulled tight before it snapped. I checked the inside collar. There was a smell there I did not know. Not cologne this time. Different. Cleaner. Sharper. Like aftershave from a man who wanted people to know he had used it. I sat on the edge of the laundry room floor with that blouse in my lap and felt foolish. A missing button did not prove anything. A smell did not prove anything. Missing time did not prove anything. But they were starting to agree with each other. That was what worried me. On Saturday, Joan wanted to go to the flea market outside DeLand. She woke up full of energy, talking before the coffee finished brewing. She wanted old picture frames, a brass lamp, maybe a bird bath if she found one cheap enough. I went because that was what we did. We followed Joan's sudden ideas until they became stories. The flea market was hot by 10. Tents flapped in the weak breeze. People moved slowly between tables of tools, dishes, old records, and things nobody needed but everyone touched anyway. Joan wore a yellow sundress and sandals. She walked ahead of me, stopping without warning, doubling back, touching glass jars, holding earrings up to her face, asking if I thought a chipped blue bowl had character or tetanus. For a while it felt like us. Then she saw someone. I did not know his name then. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a faded baseball cap and a t-shirt from a construction company in Orange City. He stood near a table of fishing gear, holding a tackle box, but he was watching Joan. Joan saw him and stopped. Not long, just long enough. Then she smiled like she had run into someone she both expected and did not want me to notice she expected. She said his name was Vince. He had helped her load a dresser into the car a few weeks back when I was working late. She said it lightly, like it was a small thing she had forgotten to mention, because small things fall out of her pockets all the time. Vince shook my hand and called me brother. I did not like that. Men use brother too quickly when they want distance to feel like warmth. Joan talked to him for less than a minute. Nothing strange was said. No hidden touch. No obvious look. But when we walked away, she became louder. That was Joan's tell, though I did not know it yet. When she was nervous, she added brightness. She dragged me toward a table of old lamps and held one up like it was the funniest thing she had ever seen. I smiled because I wanted to stay inside the version of the day where my wife was simply strange and happy in mine. That night, the yellow dress went straight into the hamper. The left strap was stretched. I looked at it for a long time. The next missing time happened on a Wednesday. The shop was slow that morning. Rain moved through the land in short, hard bursts, drumming against the front windows and turning the parking lot into a dull mirror. Maribel called in because her son had a fever, so I worked alone. Joan called around 11 and said she was going to take lunch to her friend Carla. I knew Carla. She lived near Lake Helen, had back trouble, and sometimes Joan brought her soup or gossip or both. At 12:30, Joan called again. Her voice sounded breathless but cheerful. She said Carla had not been home after all, so she might wander around a little. I asked where she was. She said near downtown. I heard traffic behind her, but not downtown traffic. Highway traffic. I did not challenge it. Not then. At 2:15, she came into the shop soaked from the rain, laughing like a child who had run through a sprinkler. Her hair stuck to her neck. Her blouse clung to her shoulders. She said she got caught between the car and the store. I handed her a towel from the back. She pressed it to her face. When she lowered it, I saw a red mark near her collarbone. Not a bruise yet. Not nothing either. She saw me see it. Then she turned away and said she was a disaster. A familiar line. A safe line. A Joan line. She left after 10 minutes. I watched through the front window as she got into her car and sat there before starting it. Her hand stayed on the wheel and her head tipped forward. For once, she did not look all over the place. She looked tired. That made it harder to be angry. It also made it harder to look away. By then, I had started doing what I hated myself for doing. I kept track, not in some dramatic way. I did not follow her around. I did not hide a device in her car. I did not become the kind of man I would have judged from behind my counter. I wrote down what I knew. Dates, clothes, damage, missing time, stories that did not quite meet the floor. I kept the notes in an old receipt book from the shop. That felt appropriate in a way I did not like. A torn blue blouse, a bent zipper, a missing button, a stretched yellow strap, a red mark near the collarbone, a Thursday afternoon gone soft around the edges, a Wednesday highway sound behind a downtown story. The list did not tell me who. It told me something worse. It told me this was not one moment. One moment has a shape. This had weather. The next man was not Vince. That was what finally made me understand I had been asking the wrong question. It happened at a gas station off New York Avenue. I stopped there after picking up supplies from a vendor in Daytona. It was late afternoon, the sky low and gray, the air smelling like rain and hot pavement. I pulled in for gas and saw Joan's car parked near the side of the building. She was not at a pump. She was near the ice machine, standing with a man in a white work van uniform. He was younger than me, maybe late 20s. Dark hair, narrow face, nervous hands. Not Vince. Not anyone I had seen before. Joan was talking fast. Her hands moved as she spoke, and he kept nodding, looking at her like she was both exciting and exhausting. Then he reached out and touched her wrist. She did not pull away. I stayed in my truck. I did not get gas. I did not move. The man said something. Joan laughed, but it broke halfway through. Then she stepped toward him, and for 1 second her face changed into something I had not seen directed at me in a long time. Want. That was the word I did not want. Not love. Not joy. Want. Then a car horn sounded near the pumps, and Joan snapped back into herself. She looked around, not seeing me because I was parked past the far island. The man stepped away. She got into her car and left first. I sat there until the pump beside me clicked off for someone else. I drove back to the shop without buying gas. That night Joan was normal. Painfully normal. She made grilled cheese and tomato soup because rain made her want food from childhood. She sang a song wrong on purpose while stirring the pot. She told me she wanted to repaint the laundry room because it looked like sadness had a closet. I laughed. I actually laughed. That was the worst part. I still loved the version of her that stood in our kitchen making soup and inventing little insults for paint colors. Then she reached into the cabinet for bowls, and the sleeve of her shirt slid up. There was a faint mark around her wrist, where the man at the gas station had touched her. After dinner, I washed the bowls while she sat at the table talking about paint samples. I almost asked her. The words came all the way up. Who was he? But I swallowed them, because I knew if I asked too early, she would scatter the truth into pieces so small I would spend months picking them up. Joan was not good at control, but she was good at motion. She could move so fast emotionally that by the time you tried to hold one thing still, she had turned it into 3 apologies, 2 jokes, and a memory from 13 years ago. I needed the room to be still when I asked. I needed her to have nowhere to run inside herself. The third man appeared through a pocket. It was one of my own rules at the shop. Always check pockets before cleaning. Pens destroy shirts. Lip balm melts. Receipts become pulp. People forget money, notes, keys, hotel cards, jewelry, and once, a small plastic dinosaur that a child cried about until I found it in the lint trap. At home, I checked pockets too. One Sunday night, I gathered laundry while Joan showered. There was a pair of jeans in the hamper that she had worn the day before. The back pocket held a folded receipt from a bar near Sanford. Not a grocery store, not a thrift shop. A bar, 2 drinks, 1 appetizer. Time stamped just after 3 in the afternoon. Joan had told me she spent that afternoon helping Carla look through old family photos. I held the receipt under the laundry room light. At the bottom, someone had written a name and number in blue ink. Derek, not Vince, not the gas station man. Derek. I sat on the closed washing machine with the receipt in my hand while the shower ran down the hall. That was when shame came in. Not hers, mine. I felt ashamed that I had not seen it sooner. Ashamed that some part of me had kept looking for one man, one explanation, one clean betrayal I could understand. But Joan's problem was not one man. It was no boundary. That was different. Worse maybe, because a secret relationship at least has a center. This had no center. This was Joan being carried by attention until attention became contact, and contact became something she could later pretend had happened to another version of herself. When she came out in her robe, I had already put the receipt in my receipt book. She walked into the laundry room and asked if I had seen her gray pajama shorts. I looked at her then. Really looked. Wet hair, bare feet, face open. No performance, at least not one I could name. She smiled at me, and I almost hated myself for still thinking she was beautiful. The confrontation came 3 nights later. I did not plan it for that night. That is the truth. I had imagined conversations in my head. Kitchen, bedroom, back porch. In every version, I stayed calm. In every version, she either cried, denied, or collapsed into explanations. None of those imagined versions prepared me for the real one. It was a hot night, even for DeLand. The air conditioner hummed, but never seemed to catch up. The kitchen light was the only light on, soft and yellow over the table. The sink held 2 glasses and a fork. Outside the back window, the dark shape of the yard sat still under the porch light. Joan was at the counter, barefoot, eating cereal out of a mug, because she said bowls made midnight snacks feel too official. She looked like my wife. That was the part that almost stopped me. I set the receipt book on the table. She looked at it, then at me. I said her name quietly. Joan. She smiled a little unsure. Then she saw my face, and the smile disappeared. I opened the receipt book. Not dramatically, not quickly, just enough for her to see the first page. Blue blouse, cream skirt, red blouse, yellow dress, gas station, Sanford receipt, Derek. Her eyes moved down the list, and the color left her face in pieces. She said nothing. For once, nothing. I sat across from her and folded my hands on the table. I told her I did not want the names first. I did not want the details first. I did not want excuses dressed up like confusion. I wanted one clean answer. How many? She gripped the mug. Her knuckles went white. She said she did not know what I meant. That was the last lie she told with confidence. I looked at the torn blue blouse folded beside the receipt book. I had placed it there before she came into the kitchen. Freshly cleaned, pressed, and repaired. The seam was perfect now. If you did not know where to look, you would never know it had been torn. That was why I used it. I slid it toward her. I said the blouse was easier to fix than the marriage. Her mouth opened. No sound came out. I said I knew about Vince. I knew about the man at the gas station. I knew about Derek from Sanford. I knew about the missing afternoons and the clothes that came home damaged like they had survived, whether I was not allowed to see. She sat down slowly. The mug stayed in both hands. Then she began to cry. Quiet at first, then messy. Not theatrical. Not pretty. Joan was never a graceful crier. Her whole face folded when she broke, and for one dangerous second I wanted to comfort her out of habit. I did not. She said it was not like that. Then she said it was sometimes like that. Then she said she did not know why she kept letting things happen. That word mattered. Letting. I asked if she ever said no. She looked at the table. That was the answer I did not want. She whispered that sometimes she meant to, but then someone wanted her, and it felt easier to become what they were asking for than to stand there and disappoint them. I sat very still. There are sentences that explain a thing without excusing it. That was one of them. She said she always came home. Like that was loyalty. Like returning to the house after giving pieces of herself away was proof that the house still mattered. I told her home is not a place you return to after becoming someone else. Home is the place you protect from that person. She cried harder then. Not because I was loud. Because I was not. The coldest conversations are the ones where nobody has to raise their voice. She reached for my hand. I moved mine back. That was when she understood control was gone. Not control of me. Control of the room. Control of the story. Control of the way her chaos had always been forgiven because it came wrapped in laughter, warmth, and apology. For 13 years, Joan could spill sugar, forget bills, flood the laundry room, lose her keys, cry into my shirt, kiss my jaw, and somehow make disorder feel like love. But this was not disorder. This was destruction. I told her I was going to sleep at the shop that night. She said my name. Bari. I stood. She asked if I hated her. I thought about that. The answer should have been easy. It was not. I told her I hated what she had made me notice. Then I picked up the receipt book, left the blouse on the table, and walked out through the back door because the front door felt too formal for a life coming apart. The shop smelled different at night. No customers. No bell. No marable sorting tickets at the counter. Just the hum of machines cooling down, the faint chemical sweetness of solvent, and rows of clothes hanging in plastic under fluorescent light. I slept badly in the office chair, with a folded coat under my head. At some point before dawn, I woke and looked through the little interior window toward the racks. Hundreds of garments hung there, cleaned and pressed, waiting for people to return and claim them. That thought stayed with me. Clean does not mean untouched. Pressed does not mean whole. Some damage comes out. Some damage only learns how to hide better. Over the next few weeks, Joan moved through the house like a woman trying not to startle a wounded animal. She offered explanations, then stopped. She suggested counseling, then cried when I did not answer fast enough. She made coffee. She folded towels. She cleaned drawers that did not need cleaning. I did not punish her. I also did not rescue her from the silence. That was new for both of us. We separated quietly. No big announcement. No public war. She stayed with Carla for a while, then rented a small place near the edge of town. I kept the house at first because I did not have the energy to decide what a home was supposed to be without her in it. People asked questions. I answered very few. Marable knew enough not to ask at work. She just started bringing me Cuban coffee some mornings and pretending she had bought too much by accident. That kindness mattered. Small kindness always does after large damage. The healing was not cinematic. It was laundry mostly. My own laundry. For years, Joan's clothes had been mixed with mine. Her bright scarves, loose dresses, soft robes, shirts with missing buttons, socks that never matched. After she left, the hamper looked too simple. Work shirts, jeans, towels, nothing torn, nothing hidden. At first, that emptiness hurt. Then slowly, it became peaceful. I learned to cook 3 meals well enough not to dread dinner. I painted the laundry room a soft gray, not because Joan had wanted to repaint it, but because I did. I replaced the kitchen light. I stopped saving every old note she had written me and kept only one. Do not forget you are loved. I kept it not because of her, because I needed to remember that being betrayed did not mean I had been unlovable. That took longer than I expected. Near the end, Joan came by the shop with a navy dress in her hands. She looked smaller, though she was not. Less scattered, maybe. Or maybe I had stopped organizing her chaos into charm. She asked if I could clean it. I took the dress because it was my job. Our fingers did not touch. She said she missed laughing with me. I believed her. That was the saddest part. I missed it too, but missing a thing does not mean you can live inside it again. When she left, I tagged the dress, checked the pockets, and hung it with the others. There was no receipt inside. No note. No hidden name. Just fabric. For once, fabric told me nothing. That felt like mercy. If you made it this far, subscribe to Reddit Ride for more stories where the quiet moments matter most. I used to think love meant staying through the mess. Now I know better. Some messes are just endings that took too long to speak.